Hey guys, figured I'd record outside today. I tried to go to the park, but it was like if you look at how bright it is behind me, imagine that 1,000 times worse over my face, entire body. So, thoughts today. Uh, what does heaven look like to you guys? Now, heaven, you can. Uh, I just want to broach the subject, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about what I see going on in the environment and why it's going on. And then how the individual, like all of us have tried to create our own level heavens, right? That's what everybody's trying to do, is create their own little paradise and their own little, and block out the rest of the world, because most of the rest of the world is in some kind of conflict or fighting over something. And so, I mean, ultimately, like the coaches, healers, consultants of the world have tried to create their own little paradise and just tried to coach other people on how to get to the same way. But eventually we got to move past just giving each other advice and start, because the rest of the world is building the things that we have to purchase and interact with. Until we learn how to work together, we're not going to be able to create the heaven on earth that we all want to create. Now, we can create it for ourselves individually, but you know how do we, isn't there a way that we can create our own little heaven on earth? And so what does that look like, right? This is something that I've been trying my best to communicate on this channel for a long time. And it's part of the reason why I haven't really gone into the consulting field when it comes to trying to instruct bigger business on how to um, operate better, right? Be, to create more abundance for everybody involved in that business. And ultimately, that's what you're trying to do. If you're trying to heal a business at all, you're trying to create more abundance for everybody in that business. Better health, better psychological state, right? Um, uh, More physical wealth. There's nothing wrong with physical wealth. It's when you prioritize physical wealth over your own mental and physical health, and if you prioritize it over the mental and physical health of other people, that's when it gets destructive. And that's one of the hardest things to balance when it comes to trying to help other people in this reality, right? You can't help somebody else when you're, especially if they're in a poor uh, financial situation. How do you help that person without costing it, costing time for yourself? Well, the energy we put out there is what we get back. And there's nothing wrong with helping other people, but you kind of have to steer them in a direction that's going to be helpful for themselves, or else you're wasting your time and energy, right? So this is the biggest problem, and I'm not here to throw stones on anybody, right? I mean, coaches, consultants uh, deal with this issue every day, because the people that need the most help usually are the people that can't afford it. So what do you tell them? How do you heal? First of all, you have to, usually the if you're in a poor state uh, of wealth, then you're in a poor, usually it comes from a poor state of mind. Uh, People don't want to be around somebody that's in a poor state of mind. I should turn that off. Okay, it's beautiful outside, but the heat pump wants to kick on. So, where was I? Being in a poor state of mind. Everybody, all of us go through ups and downs, especially in this world, that because you're faced with that stuff all the time, right? It's not like you can just block off giant sections of the world that are suffering. There's no infrastructure there. And those people create their own hell there. So the only thing that you can do is try and show them a better way. But if they, in a lot of ways, the best thing to do is just to get out of those areas. What else can you do, right? If you have a high percentage of people that are interested in dominating the lives of other people and just don't care and just are willing to murder and slaughter other people regardless of what they're doing, your only real option is just to kind of get out of there, right? Or stay there, master yourself, and create your own little piece of heaven, wherever that is. And from a spiritual perspective, that you'll be protected. A lot of people don't believe that, feel like they need to lash out, but I've witnessed and heard of people doing that, right? Even the worst areas. If you create your own little bubble where you're at peace and nobody has any beef with you, then there's no reason for anybody to attack you because you're not attacking anybody else. It's possible, but is that the way we want to live, right? Do we want to create little bubbles everywhere where we've created our own little heaven and not create a refuge for other people to go and create the things that we want to create? This is the one thing that we're missing on this planet, right? We don't have large groups of people creating beautiful communities for people to live in. Now, maybe there are higher states of awareness, maybe higher realities that we just can't see if we're not vibrating at a high enough level that are there. But there's no reason why it can't exist here. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I mean, obviously, there's two basic rules to creating heaven on earth, right? Is to make sure that we're honoring each other and we're prioritizing the health and wellness of each other above all things. Treat each other as we treat ourselves. And, doing our best to connect with our higher selves and creating and not putting our needs in above the needs of anybody else, but at the same time blocking anybody who is trying to do that. That's all you can do, because people take advantage of you, right? If you're constantly putting the needs of somebody else in front of you, that's what public service is, right? You're trying to provide for the people around you in a balanced way without overly giving, making sure that they're doing the same thing that you're doing. Surrendering to the needs of the community on a agreed to community schedule. We don't have that anywhere, right? That's why we've created money. The reason that we've created money is to hold people accountable for actually being productive. But because of that, the the drive to get more money means that it creates the imbalance in and of itself, because everyone has their own idea of what they're worth and how much money they're worth. I watched a tarot reader talk about, hey, you've got a lot of ideas, keep expanding on your ideas. The hardest thing about that one is when you have an idea and you bring it to a group of people, there's a natural resistance because it's your idea. It's not their idea. This is something that I have dealt with for a long time. I thought about commenting, but I didn't want to write anything negative, right? Because when you have a new idea, there's this air of jealousy. A lot of times there's people are very standoffish. They don't want to work with you, because especially if you're not in any kind of contractual agreement and you're not working for a company, the people that have pulled themselves out of business and become private contractors, it's really difficult to be willing to start working with other people again, because they were in a system where nobody was treated the same, and B, most of the time you're not part of the decision-making system as to the direction of what we're building together. Those two things in and of itself will destroy communities. And so that's what we witness, right? It's like the animal nature that just wants to feed, that wants more than everybody else. So where was I at? This is a long video. You guys are probably going to have to be patient with me on this video because it's a very deep subject, right? I mean, how do you manifest heaven on earth? Heaven on earth is a place where there's no sickness, there's no death. And to be perfectly honest, and I've thought about this, and it's part of me has been, you know, if you get to a place of self-healing to where you could, you know, and you can believe, it's all a matter of belief, right? That we can heal one another, and we can. It's just a matter of belief. Then we have to believe that we can create heaven on earth. Right? The two are intertwined to the point where there is no difference. Either we believe that we can heal people of body, mind, and soul, and if we believe that we can do that, then why wouldn't we believe that we could create a place where everybody is in a state of mutual abundance? It's not really too difficult when you really picture it. It's just, you know, we're all different parts of a living organism. There isn't anybody that has less value than anybody else. And I mean, I've witnessed this in business settings, you know, different work environments where people are treated differently. But if you really get to know somebody, you realize how unique the characteristics of all of us are, and how many different ways that we serve one another, and how, as long as we don't get caught up in trying to compare one another or do anything like that, because all of us are connected at the heart space, and the rest of it is all stuff, right? So what does it look like? And I've been trying to build that, at least build a beginning of it, for a long time. But, you know, I've got a long story of negative entities that try to keep you from doing something that they know is going to have a negative impact on what they're doing. Right? If you have a group of people that are controlling a large portion of the population because the population leaves it up to them to make rules for society, and all of us are giving our power away to it, what if we took our power back? What if we, as individuals, decide, hey, we're going to decide for ourselves what's good for us as a community, and we're no longer going to put one or two or three or five or 10 or 100 people in charge of us. There's no reason why we can't be in charge of ourselves solely, right? What's good for the whole is always good for the individual, but we don't live in a society that does that. We don't have a society that makes decisions what's good for the whole. Never have. We've always been making decisions on what's good for the smaller minority. And so the large majority has to do things to create a hierarchy of feeding that creates a poor class of people. And you could say that, well, those people are poor of mind, and that may be true in a lot of ways, but you don't give them access to understand how to better themselves at the same time because of that system that's in place. So I'm going to go back to Intel. So Intel right now is in a downward spiral. In case you guys haven't told, Intel to me is one of the biggest symptoms of what we see when a big business collapses, because you have a small minority of the people that believe they have the best interests of the company, that they try and do their best to try and make things go in a certain direction, but it doesn't work out because if they would just listen to the engineers, and I've heard a lot of interviews that were interviews of engineers for Intel that, you know, say, hey, you know, this company had a chance to kind of change direction, let's say 5 years ago or 6 years ago, when AMD started their Zen architecture. Now this might get a little bit technical for you guys who are watching this video and you're not really sure of what I'm talking about. But CPU development is fairly complicated, but it's all based on one machine. They're all of them. It doesn't matter who they're dealing with. Right now, every single one of those companies is dealing with one machine at a TSMC factory called the lithography machine. It takes a picture of a circuit to build that size core. So now we have CPUs that have 8 cores, 16 cores, 24 cores, and that's all they can do is because they're limited by that one lithography machine. It's a very expensive machine. It's like a $200 million machine because it's taking a picture of a microscopic circuit that's building nano-sized transistors, right? And as the transistors get smaller, TSMC is now the only factory that can make a 3 nanometer transistor. Nobody else can do it. And so they're all limited by that one company and the size of that picture. Now, a company like Intel could have said, hey, look, in order for us to dominate this industry, we need to come together in an organization and start redeveloping everything. Scrap everybody else. They're all concentrated on what their own limitations. We have no limitations. And I'll be the first one to tell you that as soon as people start to understand this, that we can get together as a group and realize that we have no limitations on what we can create together, then we'll start creating heaven on earth. But people are always, we set our own limits because we think that we need to serve other people. No, if we're going to build heaven on earth, we're serving ourselves. And the only way that we can do that is to understand that we got to leave the old things behind. Now it's going to get mad. It's going to get really mad. It's going to thrash around because it wants you and I to buy into that old thing, right? That's it in a nutshell. We can create CPUs and motherboards. I mean, for one thing, think about it this way. If you're working in an organization or working with a group of people where everybody's treated the same, we all have, by how much we make, how much time we work during the day, and we're all making decisions together as to the best direction to go. All of our inputs are respected equally. You might say, well, how would you do that? Well, that's what if you go to circuitbreaker.com, I show as much as I can about that. You basically just create a group of people like a living body and treat each other the same, and then the only power that any of us have is the power to say no. But if you give everybody the power to say no, then everybody's got to say yes before we go forward, and that's the best way to be, right? You would create a magnet, because why would anybody else want to work for somebody else when you could go work with somebody else and be treated equally? I could go work for somebody else where they're going to treat me less than they're going to treat me, and I'm going to be working for their creation, versus go work with these guys where they're all working together to mutually create what they want to create, and everybody's treated equal. Everybody would have access to the same resources that that whole group owns. Imagine a group that has a group of 1 million people, the resources that you would have available to you if all of us had mutual ownership of all the assets of 1 million people. You don't find that on this planet anywhere, because everyone has forced themselves psychologically to believe that, oh, I need to take care of myself or else nobody's going to take care of me. I mean, I'll preach. I could preach this all day long. All I have to do is surrender to the process, because eventually, when people really understand that the only limiting factor is your ability to trust and to surrender to the needs of the people around you, and limit it, make sure that we're all coming to agreement on how much. Religion has nothing to do with it. People have their religious, and it's not a cult. There are basic spiritual laws that you can follow that will create heaven on earth. You just keep the imbalanced entities from coming at you, right? If it's imbalanced, say, hey, look, we have a balanced society here. All you have to do is, and to be realistic, in a society like that, you probably have something like, I would guess, all but 20 hours a week to yourself, because the rest of the time is community service, right? Maybe you're helping somebody build houses. Maybe you're helping somebody. Maybe you're healing the sick. Maybe you're teaching kids, you know, how to co-create, how to build things together, instead of teaching them how to get a job for somebody else's creation, or teaching them how to become an attorney so that they can protect themselves legally from all the feeding entities out there and create limited liability agreements until you're blue in the face, right? Heaven doesn't have limited liability agreements, I can tell you that right now. I guess I don't have really too much more to say about that, other than this is a beautiful day. And the sun is shining, and I wish you guys could see the clouds, but the saturation level is a little bit too high, and I messed with it, and I couldn't get it just right. And this is pretty good here because I'm in the shade, but around the corner, if I tried to do this video, it would be super bright. So, yeah. For me personally, I always felt that if I could just build that one thing, just a piece of software to decentralize decision making, then it would become very popular, and I could pour that money back into the community so that other people could create what they wanted to create, and invite as many people that wanted to treat each other equally as possible. Yeah. Love you guys. Have a beautiful day. And we'll probably see companies like, now, a company like Intel, I don't know why I'm still rambling. I just said have a beautiful day. But I just got to get this off my chest. It's never too late for anybody. For one thing, heaven is always an open invitation for everybody. There isn't anybody that, regardless of who you are or where you're at, all you have to do is let go. Yeah, regardless of what you look like, it doesn't matter. But even a company like Intel could turn everything around. The problem that they run into is money, right? If you're not making revenue, how would you keep the extra 15,000 or 50,000 employees that you need to create something new? You could, if you redirected everybody's efforts and then told them to say, look, we're all going to have to take a temporary pay cut in a year and a half, but in a year and a half time, if you really understand and believe in what we're doing, we will take over the market and the industry wholeheartedly. And there really is opportunity in the market right now if people really understand that's the only real block to us growing as a society. All these people that are getting laid off of these companies that are not treating each other well. I had a best friend that worked for Intel. Worked 80 to 100 hours a week. They burn him out after 7 years, and then they let him go. Ship him down the road because they know they can't keep that schedule. There's no reason to have to work like that. None whatsoever. You just have to have enough people. And the only reason is because they're focused on profits. Profits above everything. Profits above the life, the health of the people. It's all garbly-gook, right? So, I'll repeat what I just said. Love you guys. Have a beautiful day, and we'll catch you in the next one.